let's sort of drill down a little bit to Danielle Smith, who is in the mix of all of this,
Yes.
because it seemed as though right after Trump got elected, and now before he's even taken office, she's quickly building relationships with her counterparts in the United States in a way I don't think we've ever really seen a Canadian premier do. In fact, I think Rachel Notley did the opposite. She recalled our envoy to Washington, Rob Merrifield, as one of her first acts of business.
Mhm.
What do you think? Do you think if we see tariffs on some sectors of the economy, will Danielle Smith's work with her American counterparts insulate Albertans from some of that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And as soon as gasoline in the Midwest goes up by 35, 50, 70 cents a gallon, Trump will back away from the tariffs on oil and gas, because they rely on our oil and gas for about 4 million barrels a day. And there is no economic barometer that I can think of in the United States. Inflation maybe, but the price of gasoline is the one that people see every day when they drive up and down the roads, because the prices are always posted, and they know what the economic trends are based on what they see. And if suddenly gasoline in the Midwest, which is where most of our oil and gas goes, if suddenly gasoline goes up, as I said, 35, 50, 75% or 75 cents a gallon, Trump will probably back off. The other thing is that the Americans, of course, think of us as the attic where they put the stuff they're not going to use all that much. And then every once in a while, like at Christmas time, they have to go up and get the tree from there and bring it back down. So we are not their biggest problem. But you notice the Mexican president, she came out and she said, before Trudeau even did, oh, yeah, we'll stop all of the transshipment of people through Mexico into. They're not going to do that. But she gave him a political win. She gave Trump a political win. And to some extent, so did Trudeau by flying down to Mar-a-Lago and having
the
dinner.
ring.
Yeah, exactly. And so what?
Exactly.
You got to do what you got to do. If you have 40 million people and they have 330 million people and their economy is our like more than 70% of our exports go to the United States, you got to schmooze with people. You have probably been in jobs where there were customers or clients that the business had to host at a golf tournament or take to a hockey game or take out for dinner, and you didn't really care for them, but you did it anyway because that's how you do business. And that's what Trudeau has to learn with Trump.
Yeah, it's all about building relationships, as Trudeau
Absolutely.
actually once said.
one of your earlier points when you're talking about Danielle Smith, she has made really good inroads with the Western governors. So much so that they've invited her to their next meeting to sit in as an observer and a participant. Apparently she's going to make some remarks there. Very few premiers have worked that angle that well. And she is also filling a very important void until Pierre Poilievre, fingers crossed, gets to be prime minister. He cannot, as the leader of the opposition, be making bold foreign forays on behalf of the country. He has no authority to do that. He has no justification for doing that. So she has filled in that she's kind of the leader of the opposition to Trudeau on economic issues and foreign affairs. And I think she's been doing a very, very good job. It looked like Doug Ford was going to be that for a little while. And then, of course, he just was happy to take any kind of federal subsidy that came Ontario's way. And, he's backed off. Like, I'm sure you have seen the annoying commercials that Ontario runs nationally about, Ontario is this great place where we're matching up northern mining with southern manufacturing might, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And where there's already been $44 billion of investment in EV manufacturing and
Investment.
batteries. Investment, exactly. I felt the investment being sucked out of my wallet the other day. That's the
Exactly.
kind of investment it is. So Ford has not been as forceful against the Liberals as we initially thought he might be. But Danielle Smith has stepped in. She has not backed off once. And I have to say, I'm so impressed by the Impact Assessment Act, that, the No More Pipelines bill, her dealing with that on the legal side, her dealings on the emissions cap for the oil and gas industry, the ads that they've run saying, hey, look, this affects every Canadian. Your prices are going to go up because we don't have the oil and gas industry anymore. And she's been equally good on a number of other confrontations with Ottawa. Ralph Klein got to be really, really well liked in Alberta, partly because he said, the Eastern SOBs could freeze in the dark, and he was tough rhetorically. Mm-hmm. But he was not as tough even as Smith has been legally and in an intergovernmental affairs way. So I've been very impressed with the way she's handled.
Sure. It feels as though she's the government in waiting envoy to the United States, but also, because she is the elected premier of Alberta, she's really leading the opposition to many of Justin Trudeau's outrageous bad policies, and she's winning. Like, it's not Jason Kenney's strongly worded letters to the prime minister anymore. This is real efforts to preserve the Canadian economy.
And I never thought I'd see the day when an Alberta premier would say, we can put sheriffs on the border to try and stem the flow of illegal immigrants into the United States from Alberta.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even, I've been doing this for 30 some years. It didn't even occur to me that they would have the constitutional authority to do that. And they may not. Somebody might challenge it and they may get shot down. But she's not afraid to try these things. And that impressed me when she said, hey, we can make our border solid. We can shut down any kind of illegal immigration into the United States from Alberta. It's not huge. Most of it goes through Ontario. But I thought, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, she's thinking of creative ways of dealing with Justin Trudeau's bad policies, including expanding the roles of sheriffs to include, watching people who are out on bail. If Justin Trudeau is going to keep releasing them on bail, at least we can better monitor them in Alberta. She's thinking outside the bun, as they say. Speaking of Justin, you know what? I was going to segue into Justin Trudeau's latest bad idea, which is the gun grab, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Still on Danielle Smith taking on these contentious issues, which I actually don't think this one is all that contentious if you talk to normal people and not activists. And that is her latest swath of what they're calling transgender, anti-transgender legislation. I don't think it is. It's about fairness in sport. It's about parents' rights. And it's about preserving the integrity of a child's body until they're old enough to make those decisions, like tattoos and piercings.
And I think that latter point is the real key to this, is that, the Canadian Pediatric Association has said, no, we must have affirmation therapy treatment for any child about 11 or older who claims to be transgender. Now, pediatricians are supposed to rush to help them get puberty blockers and reassignment surgery. It's ludicrous. The Brits and the Europeans have looked at this extensively and said, no, people at 12 years old do not have the mental capacity to make these decisions. And unfortunately, I would be prepared in some cases to say, okay, well, let their parents and doctors decide. But there are now so many activist doctors and progressive parents who would just rush to get this affirmation treatment done, that I think they had to step in and do what they did. And on the sports side, of all the talking I've done on this subject, the one that gets the most positive response is this idea that transgender women and girls should not compete in female sports. And the people on the transgender rights side say it's unfair. It's unfair. Yes, it's unfair that I wasn't big enough to play in the NFL, but life is like that. Life throws us certain unfair things that we cannot, the government simply cannot overcome. I mean, there's no way that, okay, it's unfortunate. If you were trapped in the wrong body and you need to transition, that has got to be a huge mental burden. It's got to be enormously painful, physically and mentally, to have to go through that. We can be there for you as an adult to make that transition possible, but we cannot, as individuals, as governments, as taxpayers, overcome those things. We can't compensate you for the fact that that's unfair. And is it unfair that I'd love to play soccer, but because I was born in the wrong body, I'm now prevented from playing at the highest level as a woman? I guess it is, but life has unfairness in it. And it's not the government's job to make everybody else suffer so that you feel you're being dealt with fairly. And that, to me, I think, has the most popularity of any of the three things that the UCP did. And that was to say transitioning girls and women cannot play in female sport.